The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Listen only, okay.
No, not for you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. I want to welcome you all to this another excellent presentation on behalf of IFEES, GDC, and IUCE. It's exciting that this is our 9th webinar that we have been conducting, and really glad to have Peter Burton with us today. And let me just flash the screen on that and see. Okay, so this is our 9th webinar, and the title is Quasi Interactive Videos. Peter Burton, actually, before I even read out this thing, I should mention that he is right now sitting in a boat early morning, 6 o'clock California time, off the coast of the west coast of the United States near Los Angeles, and he's been very much involved in with helping people get through this crisis that we're all facing throughout the world, and he actually will be spending the rest of the day distributing food to needy people in that region. So I want to thank Peter for taking the time to join us today. He is currently a consultant with Right Track Productions. Activities are electronic engineering consulting, corporate video production, online education video production. For 19 years, he was a senior lecturer in the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering at RMIT University, lecturing in electronics, digital design, and multimedia engineering. He's also taught extensively and worked in the microelectronics industry in the United States. A background and strong interest in video production, coupled with an appreciation of difficulties faced by students at the tertiary level, has been the impetus for this current work. So with that, really excited to have you. Thank you, Peter, for taking the time to join us. And I'm just going to make you a presenter now and let you do your thing.
Okay. I just have to click show my screen here, right?
Right.
Got you. All right, so we're ready to go.
Yes.
Look, it's my pleasure to be involved in this webinar series. So thank you very much for really this opportunity. I guess you don't have a visual of me personally here, but basically I'm like all these news presenters that we currently see working out of their home, except I'm working out of a sailboat. The top half of me has a shirt on, and then the bottom half of me, which you cannot see. If you could see me, you couldn't see the bottom half of me because I still have pajamas on. It's 6 o'clock in the morning here. So look, let me go ahead and begin here. Just a very brief recap of my background. I work for Digital Equipment Corporation and United Technologies as an IC design engineer, and then I worked in academia at the University of Southern Colorado, which I believe now is part of Colorado State, and also the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs and Oklahoma State. I've been a senior lecturer, as Krishna said, at RMIT since 1995, and then I retired 6 years ago and continued to consult with them. In 2019, I guess I spent most of the year traveling, working on various projects, and I'm still producing online educational material. So let me see if my presentation is working here. Let me see, here we go. All right. Okay, my title here today is Quasi Interactive Videos, an Educational Teaching Method. So I guess the first question really is, what are quasi-interactive videos? Well, the videos are filmed in such a way as to give the student the feeling that he or she is actively engaging with the presenter. Now, look, it is that connection which is really critical. So what I thought I would do here is I would show you a few clips that have actually been taken from various videos, just to give you a feeling of the style. So let me go ahead and move to the next slide here and show you some of these clips. There's about 2.5 minutes worth of clips. So here we go. What's happened here? Okay, so here we go. What I want to do today is introduce you to this key site digital storage oscilloscope. Now, this guy is a little different perhaps to what you've experienced before, because it actually has a signal generator contained within this same unit. So come a little bit closer and let's have a look at some of the features. We have cursors that run in this direction that are basically used to measure the vertical dimension. And then we have these two cursors here, which are used for my time measurement. All right, this little knob that's just to the right of the cursor button is used to move the cursor. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so I'm moving this particular cursor here. What I'm going to do is introduce you to CMOS. Now, CMOS stands for complementary metal oxide semiconductor, and it's the predominant technology that's used in the integrated circuit industry. If I apply 5 volts to that gate region, that's a positive voltage on the gate with respect, of course, to the P-well, then what we do effectively is we attract electrons out of this P material to the surface up here. So these are all electrons attracted to the surface, which effectively creates a conducting channel between the drain and the source region. Hello, what I'd like to do today is talk to you about this Hokey 3286 power meter. As a little exercise for you guys, let me say that the frequency has been set to 100 Hertz, and let me say that the inductor is around about 64 millihenries. So perhaps what you could do is you could use those numbers there and verify my reactance here is 40 ohms. Perhaps the most important one for us today is really this top button, which is the attenuation button. Right now, this is set on 50 times. And so what we really need to do is set this attenuation on the oscilloscope to that times 50. So what we have to do is go to our multi-purpose knob over here and set that to a times 50. So here we go. Oops, too far. There it is, times. Okay, look, I hope that gives you a little bit of a feel as to the style of these quasi-interactive videos. Okay, now look, the videos are presented in a non-canned manner, and I think it's really that spontaneity, or at least the feeling of that spontaneity, that I'm actually talking to you, that viewing person, that is absolutely critical. So they're filmed in such a way that make the student feel that the presenter is actually talking and engaging to them personally. You think the presenter is just talking to you alone. Now, many people use this particular style. I mean, we could go back to Carl Sagan all those years ago with his TV show Cosmos. While I'm watching Cosmos, Carl Sagan's talking to me, sitting on my couch there and explaining the universe to me personally. At least that's the feeling that I'm getting. And of course, there's the famous English physicist, Brian Cox, who is doing a similar sort of thing. Now, the videos they're modularized, each being 10 to 15 minutes long. Look, I steer much more to trying to make the videos, these modules, 10 minutes or less. And of course, there are many of these modules that are required to actually complete the entire course. Okay. Now, what you're seeing here, I mean, that's actually a screenshot of the editor that I'm actually using here. So let me just come out of this presentation for just a moment here. And what I want to do is I want to actually show you the editor itself. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm using a professional editor. This is Adobe Premiere Pro. It gives me a lot of features here. So what we're seeing in this window over here, or this panel here, are the various clips associated with producing this particular video. Now, this is the first video that I've produced on the boat. And there is the boat over there. And let me just play a little bit of this so you can actually see this. So, and supporting this channel. I spent most of 2019 traveling. I'm now living on a sailboat in California. Now, what I've done is I've actually made a small studio on the boat so I can actually continue this production. Okay, so we'll have a look at this. And and I'll just give you an idea of the, I guess, of the quality that I'm able to get here. So what you're seeing here, I'll play just a little bit of this. And so what that would be is cosine omega t plus, okay, now my approach here is that I worked through the derivation, the problem with you, and my feeling is that because I'm writing this in this manner, your mind really is, in a sense, at the tip of my pen. Now, I continue on with this, and where appropriate, I can show you animations. So for example, over here, if I move to this section here, I'm looking at this function here. I'm actually looking at plotting this function on a polar plane. So let me just play that for a second. In this circular motion, what we end up producing over here is a sinusoid, and what we produce over here is really a cosine waveform. So look, I've got a little animation here that will show this. So let's have a look at this. So you can see here that the imaginary component produces a sine wave. The real component produces a cosine wave. Okay. Now, over in this panel over here, we can actually do editing in this window here and then bring this over to our timeline. Our timeline then represents the complete video that we're trying to produce. We have a whole bunch of effects that we can use here to make it appear more professional. And so if I look at the various video effects that I have over here, I can open up this here. You'll see that I can do all kinds of things to the videos. And of course, I've got the same control over audio effects as well. So there's a whole bunch of different things I can do here. So that's the editor which I'm using really to produce these videos. So let me now go back to the presentation. All right, so we'll just begin this from where we left off. Okay. All right. The videos are designed to really have a done by learning, or learn by doing approach, I should say. And the format is the following. I introduce the theory for the topic. Then I work a problem. Then I tell you to take a break, maybe have a cup of tea, and have a look at this problem that I'm going to give you now. And then when you're ready, come on back and we'll work that problem together. All right, now, requirements. We want to make the videos as professional as possible. Now, I think there are some key things here. I think the presenter, how you present, this is really important. Remember, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to engage with you as the individual. I want to appear as though we're really having a discussion together, as it were. So really what it means is I'm looking down the barrel of that camera, and that camera is you. And in a way, that camera becomes my friend. You know, I have to be comfortable as I talk to you, as I really talk to that camera. So I, as the presenter, are really a very critical part of this, or is a very critical part of this. The equipment that we use, yes, you know, in Australia, I have a studio in the house. I have professional equipment in the house. On the boat here, well, I've got a small little office here, which I've converted into a studio. Camera-wise, what I'm using here is a little GoPro camera. I think it's worked very effectively. Now, one of the conditions in relation to a GoPro camera is I really, in order for me to control the depth of field, in order for me to have everything in focus, I need to have the correct lighting. I need to have enough light in there. If I don't have enough light, the camera's not very good in low light conditions. I end up having a very, very shallow depth of field. And so what I'm writing, what I'm doing, essentially is out of focus. Another thing that can add to the interest level of these videos is perhaps having some location scenes. For example, there's a video that I did a number of years ago actually on traffic light controllers. So I start this video by having you, as it were, sitting next to me as I'm driving along the road. I approach an intersection and I say to you, hey, you know, what we're going to do today is we're going to think about how we might design this traffic light control system. So we've actually started the video by considering a real situation, and then we, as it were, move into a situation where we're actually designing whatever that is. So the location scenes can certainly add to that interest level. A rationale for my quasi-interactive videos. Well, look, I believe that this is part of an online approach to teaching engineering education. There are other things that are necessary, but I do believe this could be part of it. I think it satisfies that need that students tend to be visual today, and they prefer to watch rather than read. I think it's very important that we excite students about learning and the subject matter, that we're able to engage those students, that we're able to think together. Now, the filming of lectures, well, yes, I suppose if you can do nothing else, I think that's fine, but lectures tend to be long, tend to be a little boring, not if you're in the lecture theater, but certainly if you're kind of watching from a screen somewhere else. And they're also hard to really navigate. So if there's a small section there that I'm just interested in, whether it's on mesh analysis or whatever it happens to be, finding where that is in, let's say, a 1.5 hour lecture might be a little bit difficult. Some of the benefits here. Okay, well, these videos enable students to review course material over and over again. They enable students who have missed a lecture to easily catch up. They also provide an advantage, a significant assistance to international students whose language skills may still require some honing. There is a potential project that I'm going to be working on in Myanmar. Now, this is actually with high school students. And what we find, I was in Myanmar for a month last year, and what we find with the students is, and these are students in very poor conditions, but they tend to at least know English by way of listening to it, and they can actually read it. Their listening skills with English are not quite so good, but they have an ability to read. And so in that case, what we can do there is have subtitles in English. I would certainly be presenting in English, and then they can marry up my words with the actual subtitles, and they can gain some benefit, not only from learning the subject material, but also in improving their understanding of spoken English. So that's potentially something that I might be working on in, not now in 2020, but maybe in 2021. Presents opportunities for the use, of course, in distance online education, satisfies the needs for students, again, being visual rather than having material in written form, and I think assists the students in the transition from secondary to tertiary studies. And of course, assist students that may have specific learning needs. I've had students over the years that have been very intimidated, for example, by large lecture theaters, and really need to be in a space on their own. And this is another area where these videos can be very beneficial. As far as laboratories are concerned, I believe I presented a paper on this in, I think it was ASEE in 2005, I think it was, and this was using quasi-interactive videos for laboratories. Quasi-interactive videos can be very useful in terms of student preparation for a laboratory experiment, a preliminary activity. So the students are able to look at the video, which will run through what they actually need to do for that particular experiment. Also found, though, that with tutors, now let me give you a bit of background on this. We've had typical classes in first year. This is in Australia at RMIT. We typically have first year classes that would be, of the order of 300 students. That's in first and second year. Let me translate. First and second year, what is that? That's freshman and sophomore years. So what does that mean? It means that we have to have multiple lab sections. So we could be having anywhere from 12 to maybe 14 different lab sections. How are these taught? Well, they're typically taught by graduate students, PhD students. And one of the criticisms that we've had over the years is that we fall down with our labs. There's such a variability with the instruction in our labs. So by using the quasi-interactive videos for not only the students in terms of preparation, but they're also a valuable tool to bring the tutors up to speed with what the expectations are for the laboratory. And so they've been very, very beneficial in the sense of reducing that variability from one section to another. Also, the QIVs can be used to teach students how to use equipment. You've seen a couple of clips there where I'm really explaining how to use a particular oscilloscope or a voltage probe or a current probe or whatever it is that they need to use. We also have had many experiments where students actually need to set up a complex experiment. And again, the videos are able to guide those students through all the issues of setting up that experiment. Okay, look, we're in very difficult times at the moment. In particular, I suppose, in the United States, in Europe, and certainly in the UK. The effect in Australia is a lot less than it has been here, but nevertheless, they're still doing the same control methods that we are doing in the United States and in Europe. So what does this all mean to us? Well, I think in many ways it's really a time for us to reflect. Maybe a time that we should be considering perhaps new ways of doing things, a new direction. And so I don't know, perhaps what I see here and what's already starting to happen is that maybe we move to a situation in the future where we have a combination of a virtual and physical world. Now, what does that mean from maybe an educational point of view? Well, perhaps we could envisage a situation, certainly from a teaching point of view, where maybe the virtual aspect of our education could be maybe 2 or 3 days a week. And then the remaining time would be, yes, we get together with our tutors, we get together with our professors. Maybe it's a time that we are able to work on laboratories, and of course we're able to meet and work with other students. So it becomes a combination of virtual, physical. I also see that as far as the, I guess as far as certain industry is concerned, we're seeing a lot of people working at home right now. And so maybe we also try to steer things in a direction whereby some work, even if it's 1 day a week, 2 days a week, can be done online, and then the rest of the time is perhaps at the company site. I think this could provide perhaps a protection for us as we move into perhaps future uncertainties. We could argue that it's certainly good for the planet. This has been an opportunity, I guess, where the planet has had little time to breathe. And certainly if we're not traveling as much to work, just consider the benefit there in terms of less cars on the road. Now, I could talk about perhaps further research directions here. And we could think about, well, network engineering. I think that's a strong research direction. My son is in the film industry, and he's very fortunate. He's able to work at home. Now, he's a colorist. So he's dealing with incredibly large files. So yes, he's working at home. One of the issues that he's facing is, in order to get a file downloaded onto his computer, in order to do the work he needs to, it's just taking a huge amount of time. And so I think it's important that we are able to do some work here to speed things up, to be able to handle large volumes of data, to be able to handle the volume of more and more people online. Perhaps another direction for research could be automation and robotics. Again, not saying that everything from an industry point of view can and will be in a virtual sense, not at all. But perhaps as we steer more towards automation and robotics, then maybe we might be able to end up with a situation I'm referring to in the third item there, a virtual/physical world. Now, there is an interesting podcast. I've given you a reference here. That podcast is by, well, it's run and hosted by Sam Harris, and it's an interview with Matt Mullenweg. He has a company. He started a company called Automatic. He has over 1,000 employees working in 75 different countries. It's certainly interesting to listen to this podcast, which is of course entitled The New Future of Work, which is very much talking about a virtual type environment. All right, now what you're seeing here is a reference to my YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel, what I have here, and we can just briefly look at this, I've got topics ranging from electronics, DC circuits, AC circuits, complex power, operational amplifiers, mathematical methods. This is what I'm trying to build at the moment. I think there are about 6 videos there which are addressing partial fractions. Some videos on equipment, a couple of videos at this point on CMOS, and then a section on digital design and analog electronics. Right now, 128. The one you saw in the editor there, that's the 129th video. So what I like to do here is just to briefly show you this and show you how to navigate through this. So I'm just going to click on this guy over here, and we can have a quick look at this, this channel. So here is the channel here. And here are the playlists. So we've got all these different topic areas. We've got, for example, the DC circuits, AC circuits. We've got the mathematical methods and so on. So what I thought I'd do is just show you here a couple of the playlists. This is how it is indexed. And as you can see here, these are all the different topic areas. So starting off with Ohm's law, Kirchhoff's law, moving on down, for example, to current dividers, maximum power transfer, and mesh analysis, and so on. Now you can see the times for each one of these little segments here. And you'll notice I'm really, in essence, trying to keep these really below that 10-minute mark. Okay, a couple have gone over that. There are a number of these that are certainly less than the 10 minutes. Here's another example here. I'll just show you the playlist associated with digital. So we start off here, for example, with the logic gates, Boolean algebra, quickly leading into a state machine consideration. And then here's that consideration, for example, on traffic light control systems and so on. Okay, so this is my YouTube channel here. It is easy to navigate. Do I still feel I need to do some more work with these 128 videos, more in the sense of putting more descriptions associated with each section there. So that's something I will continue to do. I got these up in 2019, but I wanted to get them up quickly since I was traveling so much that particular year. So I will be adding to this. By the time I'm done, I would expect that perhaps there might be 1,000 such videos existing. Okay, continuing then. All right, now, I guess I am opening this up to really questions. By the way, traveling in Los Angeles now, it's really a breeze. I've never seen anything like this. Normally traveling, you know, maybe a 10-mile trip in Los Angeles with the traffic can take you 2 hours. I mean, the roads today, this is not an exaggeration. The roads are just unbelievable today. Okay, look, thanks very much. I really do appreciate this time to share this with you.
Thank you, Peter. Let's spend the rest of the time having some discussions, okay? I'll get this thing started off, and I encourage all the people in the audience to send in questions, and I'll read them out as you send them in.
Yes.
Suppose if I were interested in doing what you did, is creating these interactive videos, what would it take? I mean, suppose there's somebody in India, somebody in Argentina wants to do what you're doing, but in their particular subject matter.
Yep.
What would it take? Can you step by step walk me through it, and what are some of the financial issues? And
well, look, look, as I said to you, in Australia, I actually have a full studio there, and I spent a lot of money really on setting up that studio. So I'm sitting there with a professional Sony camera. I think this is an NX5. I've set up all the permanent lighting, so I have a whole room really in my house devoted to this. And so, yes, I have the appropriate lights, I have the professional camera, etc. Now, bear in mind, I'm now doing this on a boat, and
yes.
you know, I don't have the room for that. I have a small, what I would say is a small little office here, and I was using, and you saw, I showed you in the editor, Premiere Pro, I guess the quality I'm achieving with that little GoPro camera. I think I spent about $350 on the little camera. Yes, I have to mount that little camera so I can actually do this. The lighting in the office, I've got LED lights in there. The key with this to make that GoPro camera work well is I have sufficient light really to do that. Otherwise, you know, I don't have the depth of field and everything's out of focus. So the key is really to have the right lighting. It's not expensive to do that. These LED lights are really relatively cheap. I've got boat LED lights, which make them relatively expensive because anything to do with a boat becomes expensive. But you can buy these simple LED lights for, you know, I guess at Home Depot, and they are relatively cheap. So a key is the lighting. The audio, look, I'll be honest with you, the audio, I've got a Zoom, which is a separate audio recording device. It's called a Zoom. That's the brand name of this. It's a Zoom. The Zoom would cost about $500, but I'll be honest with you, the microphone on the little GoPro is actually really very good. And I didn't, for that video that you saw, I didn't actually need to use my Zoom. So I actually have a Zoom that can connect to a wireless mic, and I can have a lapel microphone on my shirt. I can do that, but I didn't need to. The little GoPro, I thought, did a really, really good job. Can you use a phone to do this? Well, you know, if you can mount the phone cameras are so good these days that you could possibly do that too. I think the little GoPro is a better way to go, but they are so cheap. What else would you need to? I think how you present is going to be important. You as the presenter, I think you gotta have that style of trying to engage your audience. So some people initially find that a little hard. You know, they're talking to a camera, and you know, I've worked with a lot of academics over the years who are brilliant lecturers, absolutely brilliant lecturers. You put a camera in front of them, and it's, oh my God, you know, I'm talking to a camera. I don't like this. I don't like talking to a camera, and they become very stiff. They become very rigid. And you've got to get over that. You've got to kind of not look at this as a camera anymore. Just look at it as another person. I'm having a chat to you as another person. And so I think that's a critical thing, is getting over that sort of reluctance to talk to a camera.
So you're saying that, you know, the camera is now camera, lighting, video, I mean audio. If you have that figured out, most of it is done. And then how do you get the software and then of course
Premiere Pro. I use
and the tool that you use to write on that whiteboard. What is that tool that you use?
Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm doing there. Now it's my belief, and I accept that people have lots of different opinions. I think a lot of variability is good here too. I do believe, as I talk and as I'm writing and explaining things, I do believe that number one, I keep the pace at the right level. I'm not going too fast. I'm kind of thinking with you, and I think that's important. To show something already done, I'm not saying there's not times that are appropriate to do that, but you know, when I'm developing an idea, I like to kind of write with you and talk with you and think with you, and I believe I've got your thoughts, as it were, at the tip of my pen. Now, I'll tell you what I'm doing there. It's not a blackboard. What it is I've got a desk there, and I've got I've got a translator here from Australia to America. I'm not sure what A3 means in America, but it's a large piece of white, very thick paper. And I actually mount the camera in such a way that the camera is actually looking down on this piece of paper. And so I'm writing then, and you're seeing this as if I am writing on a whiteboard, but I'm not really doing that. I'm actually writing on the paper, which is on the desk. Now this is inverted. Obviously the image will be upside down. So in other words, the camera is, I'm in front of the paper, I've got the paper, and then the camera is, as it were, behind the paper, looking down on the paper. So the image then is upside down. So I go into the editor and then I flip the image. I straighten the image up as well. So if it's got any sort of, if it's not completely square, if it looks as though it's running in, I can sort of, to some degree, I can actually straighten that up and make it look more square, more rectangular in shape. Those are the kinds of things I can actually do in the editor.
But what happens with the software? How do you what about the editor? Tell us more about the editor. How does one get one of those editors, and how do you use it?
It's an Adobe product. It's Adobe Premiere Pro. That is an Adobe product. Universities get all kinds of breaks with actually purchasing Premiere Pro. You're basically getting it more like on a lease, really. I mean, it's on an annual basis, and I think it's also linked to the cloud. It's working locally on your machine, of course. But if you want to check into that, I do not believe that is expensive. It's a very, very powerful editor. It is actually even used to some degree in the film industry, not necessarily at the very high-end films, but certainly a lot of films will be using Adobe Premiere Pro. It's a very nice editor to use. There is a bit of a learning curve with it, but there are dozens and dozens of, dare I say, QIV videos on how to use this editor, not actually produced by me, but there's lots and lots of videos that will actually steer you through how to actually use this particular editor. Very well known. It's an Adobe product. Look, you might be able to use some of this on your computer that comes with, for example, I use a Mac, and there are things like iMovie. You could do some basic editing with iMovie. I think on a PC, what is it on a PC? I haven't looked at that in years, but it might be called Movie Maker. That might exist on a PC. You could do some experimenting with that. Some of these, cheaper editors have some amazing features on them as well. So
I'm going to go to the audience. I'm going to go to the audience with some questions coming up. Now let's first go to one of our panelists, Uriel Kukierman from Argentina. Come in, please.
Hello, Krishna. Hello, everybody. Fine, thank you. A nice presentation, but let me challenge you in a way, because from my point of view, even though your production is, of course, very good, I'm afraid that the kind of work you are doing, it's very, very expensive and very difficult for to deal with it for a lot of us. And I'm personally producing a lot of videos, and I'm not using a camera. I'm not using a professional video editing software. I'm using free editing software, and I'm using the webcam in my notebook, and just a light, a light on my desk. And I'm producing very, very effective videos. So my challenge is in some way not to make it too professional, because some of us, we are not prepared to deal with the very professional equipment because of the cost of it and the difficulty in using it. And another thing I want to say is that in order to make these videos really interactive, there are a lot of tools online that allow you to pose questions to those students watching the video. The video stops and asks the student to answer a question, and you can have a feedback, and you can have a real interaction, not a quasi-interactive, but a real interactive way of first to know if your students really have seen the video, and also to have answers in order to really know if they understood the subject.
Oh.
So this is my as I said, my challenge to you. Try to download, to lower the requirements in order to allow each and every professor all over the world to make these kind of videos without having to spend a dime, and also to add interactive, real interactivity to it in order to get some feedback from the students.
Yes. Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. No. Let me try to address that. Now, you're from Argentina, you say?
Yes.
Yeah. Look. Interestingly enough, I was actually born in Buenos Aires. So
Wow.
I left Argentina when I was 5 years old. So my parents were fluent in Spanish, probably more fluent in Spanish than English. Guess what? I never learned Spanish. Isn't that terrible? Now I live in California, which is basically bilingual, and I don't know Spanish. That's terrible. I should have known Spanish. But no, going back to your question. Look, I do believe I'm on a boat here, and I've had to keep the costs relatively low. And as I said to you, I could get away with using a phone. All I have to do is mount the phone, because phones have such good video quality, especially in light conditions where you've got a lot of light. A phone is very good. Phones are bad when you've got low light conditions. So is that little GoPro camera that cost me $350. Bad in low light. So I need light. Light's cheap. My little room is small, smaller than what your office would be at your home. So that aspect is really cheap. There are lots of editors out there. There are probably even some editors, as I say, that come with your laptop, such as Movie Maker or iMovie. I think they just come as standard sort of things. I chose to use Premiere Pro because I've done a lot of film work in the past, and so Premiere Pro was just a natural thing that I would choose to use. I think with my videos, you can keep that cost really low. I still think, the engaging, how you present is important. From my point of view, that's important. I just want to make the student feel that I'm engaging with them, just as many TV presenters do in shows that you might watch. I feel I'm connecting with Brian Cox, or I'm connecting with Carl Sagan, and that sort of keeps my interest there. Now, when you mentioned the other aspect of, yes, I call this quasi, because basically I'm talking about theory for a little bit. I work a problem, then I give you a problem, you go away and work it, and then you come back and you watch me work through the solution. That is the quasi nature of this. I indicate, though, very strongly that this is a part solution to online education, not the total solution. And I believe what you're talking about too is very, very valuable. So, in other words, I could look at my videos as it were, as the theory section with some problem working, and then a whole nother section of activity online, I believe, would be addressing like homework or true interactive problem solving, like you were talking about. So I look at what you're talking about as another component of this online education, not just one thing, not just quasi-interactive video, but perhaps multiple things that we can do online. So yes, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think, and that interactivity that you have, you pose a problem, a student can interact with you directly. I think that's a very valuable thing to do as well. And that's fantastic stuff that you're doing.
So Uriel, you should give a short webinar on what you're doing next one of these days, okay, on this video production. Fantastic.
I think that would be wonderful.
Okay, I can do that.
Great. So actually, that brings me to the point of why we are doing these webinars is not to just present experts one after the other, but really all of you, 200 of you who are here and who have been at other webinars, we would like each one of you to share with us, just as Uriel has done, sharing with us what he's done, and actually we can provide open mic sessions, where you can have maybe half a dozen of you talk for 10 minutes each. So we're going to start thinking about that. What's that?
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, open mic where people have come ahead, prepare a little bit ahead of time, give advance notice and come to this webinar, and each one gets about 5-10 minutes to talk about what they're doing and make presentations. That way the sharing is actually much better than just some expert talking for the whole webinar. And I think that's really the goal of our this series, is to engage in that kind of a learning community where we are working together and improving what we're all doing. So thank you so much for bringing up that, Uriel and Peter. I'm going to go one by one through the lots of questions that are here,
Okay.
and see if I can make sense. Figure out how to get got a lot of them, so I'm going to sort through them gradually. One from Miguel Iber says, what experiences do you have in virtualization of laboratories such as electric machines, where students have a lot of interaction with equipment and instruments? According to your experience, a laboratory of 20 hours plus 10 hours work at home in work, how long would it take to virtualize those approximate 30 hours with your system?
Okay. I think look, laboratories are always a unique problem in terms of, do I physically touch equipment? Do I physically get to build an experiment, build a project? I think that is always going to be a challenge in a virtual setting. I think the ability to, as it were, as in the case of some of the things I've shown you, to explain how to use a piece of equipment. For example, it could be how to use a fairly complicated oscilloscope, or how to use a certain measuring device, how to construct maybe a particular complicated setup. We've had setups in power engineering whereby the student is required to set everything up. This is in a high voltage lab. They're required to set things up and then perform certain measurements. Now, I've produced videos with other academics, with other faculty members, that will take those students through the complete setup, how to actually connect everything together, how to make the appropriate measurements, and what really these measurements actually mean. Now, always, depending upon the lab, well, always really in a lab setting, you need to have a tutor there. I think it can be a very dangerous thing to have students working in real labs on their own without supervision. But certainly the videos provide a very, very good preparation for what they're going to be doing in the lab. Now, if you're talking about virtual control of lab experiments, look, I don't remember all the details here. I did work with an academic about, it must have been about 7 or 8 years ago. She was actually in power engineering, and this was a virtual control, basically, of certain equipment that existed in a lab. I don't honestly remember all the details there, but my purpose in this was to sort of make a video showing how this was all done. But yes, it was virtual control of a particular lab experiment. I don't remember those details. I'm not sure if that's what you're meaning, that we have virtual control over equipment sitting at a remote location. So we might be sitting at home and we're virtually controlling some equipment. I see that as certainly as a strong direction for the future. I did work with some of that, as I say, more, I suppose, in sort of advertising, more in sort of promoting what this faculty member was doing and trying to get off the ground in terms of virtual control of certain equipment. I'm not sure if that's what you were really referring to.
That's good. Thanks. So we'll move on to Devraj's question. He talks about your thoughts on the length of a video. I think you did mention that the shorter the better. What are your thoughts on that? And you might comment on that?
Yeah, look, I think it's important to keep the videos relatively short. I mean, my goal is not to make them more than 10 minutes. Some of my videos could be 5 minutes. Some of them could be 8 minutes. A few of them have gone over 10 minutes. I think if they're too long, you can lose the attention of the students. Why don't you break them up into part 1, part 2. That gives a break between them. So yes, definitely try to keep them to that 10 minutes or a little less. I think that's very important to do that. And then of course it makes the indexing much better, so rather than have a whole bunch of topics buried in one video, have one topic, whether that's, a voltage divider or a current divider or mesh analysis. Mesh analysis could be broken up into many parts rather than having a whole, 20, 30-minute video on mesh analysis. Break it up into smaller sections. And in a sense, that's how we're going to learn anyway, is, you know, we learn a bit, then we build on what we've learned.
Okay, I guess a couple of questions regarding how to access your channel. I assume it's open to anybody to jump
Anybody,
in.
I give it, you know, it's my purpose to produce more. I hope by the time I'm dead, there's 1,000 up there. So it's my goal to continue this. And it's everybody. I want everybody just to use it. If they don't like it, or bits are useful, use the bits that are useful. Don't, you know, I mean, I'm not advocating that this is, you know, the panacea of everything. I'm just saying that, look, use it. It's there for people to use. There's a link there. If you look at one of my slides there, you will see that link. I could send you that link directly, and then you could pass that on. So yeah, Krishna, if I could send that.
I'll have you embed it along with the recording. This video, this is being recorded. I'll put that along with the recording.
Yeah, put that along with the recording, and it's free for everybody to use. Use the bits you like. Don't use the bits you don't like. So, and as I say, my goal is to continue to improve. Even the 128 that are there, I want to improve the little descriptions of each of those sections. Some of them I was in a rush in 2019. You know, I just did part 1, part 2, part 3. Maybe in some ways self-explanatory, but I'd like to put some more explanations there. You know, and that will happen.
Okay, the gentleman from India, Thani, is telling us that a lot of this can be used for in industry training and various other activities, and that's very good.
Yes, I've done a lot. I've done a lot of work with companies directly in Australia, producing videos, training videos, as separate to this. So yes, I've done a lot of that type of work with various companies in Australia.
Okay, let's see. So Ali Munshi says that a mathematical YouTube channel want to know about how to create an environment component in the mathematical context.
Sorry, I'm not understanding that.
The mathematical context. I guess. Yep. Yeah, mathematics. Teaching mathematics, is that something that?
Yes, look, I've started that. It's called Mathematical Methods, and that's a section really on partial fractions. But I'd like to really build that. And what I'm trying to also get involved with here is, I was in Myanmar for which was formerly Burma. I was there for a month last year working on various projects. And one of the things I really want to do is produce a whole section on mathematics. Now, this is going to be high school mathematics. And the benefit there is to students, yes, that can have basic computers, but I think it's not only to teach the mathematics, but it's also to help with their English. So yes, that's a goal of mine, is to be working more and more in the area of mathematics. Certainly in Myanmar, I want to do this, and I want to do this as far as university education is concerned too, because mathematics I think, at least in my experience, both in the US and Australia, is you get all these people going into engineering. That is great, but when it comes to mathematics, it's surprising how poor the mathematics is. I don't know if that's your experience, but the students really tend to struggle with the mathematics.
A couple of questions here, Peter, on the assessment of the impact of your videos. I'm sure you've done that with a lot of students in a lot of places, and must have got some feedback. So what have been some of the major constructive feedbacks that you might have received from the viewers of your videos?
Sure. Now, over the years, and I'm sorry I don't have all of that information available to me at my fingertips, partly because I'm stuck here at the moment in California, not being able to really travel. I was planning a trip back to Australia, which I had to cancel that trip. So all my stuff is back in Australia, and so I just brought my laptop with me, and then I bought my equipment here to be able to do this. But yes, there are a number of papers I've written and presented at ASEE, which have addressed feedback of these videos, trying these videos I've produced directly for RMIT, and trying these videos, working these videos in various class settings and getting a feedback. But the feedback is, overall, the feedback has been very, very positive. And I guess you know, I don't want to say everything is perfect, but there have been suggestions for improvement, which I've tried to incorporate as I've gone forward with this. I guess I would have to say, overall, students want more of it. You know, the fact is we haven't got videos for every single course that we offer, and they feel they want more. and we can't produce them fast enough, you know, to meet that student need.
So maybe a team of people, you know, from various countries can do this.
Yep.
Like Uriel is suggesting, Uriel and you and a few other people.
Yeah.
There's a young faculty member in Mangalore who just sent me a feedback saying that he has logged into your channel right now, subscribed to it, and watched some of the videos as you were speaking. And he says they're excellent. They are really excellent content. So congratulations. I got immediate feedback.
Well, thank you very much. Look, thank you very much. And I really appreciate that. That's fantastic. So, and I think all of us together, you know, we all need to be part of this, you know, we all need to produce. I think, you know, it's a new world out there that we're going to be heading into.
Susan Schneider is pushing back a little bit again on a follow-up question to the assessment question about student satisfaction rather than, you know, gains and achievement. What do you an assessment of student satisfaction? No, he's not talking about student satisfaction, but about gains in the learning, gains in the achievement of this by the students.
Look, I think we've seen significant, for example, in the lab area, I think we've seen significant improvement in the labs where these videos have been used. The students have basically been able to. Now, I can't give you actual numbers at this point because of where I'm actually located. I don't have access to a lot of my material, but we have seen definite improvements in lab results as a result of using these videos. We've seen significant benefit where we've had large sections. Well, let me step back from that. Where we've had large classes and we've had multiple lab sections, and reducing that variability of instruction from lab tutors. So we've by each lab tutor going through these videos, they're so much better prepared to actually teach the labs. So we're seeing some significant benefit there. And so our ratings in the laboratories where the videos have been used have significantly improved. I can't actually give you numbers right now, but they've significantly improved.
Susan, I've unmuted you. If you have an audio, you can jump in.
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Hi, Susan.
Yeah, I see that you said that you can, you know, that you buy the lab improvement part of it. So that's a good question. You know, that's a good job. And thank you, Susan, for joining the discussion. I'm going to now have closing. We have a lot of exciting things that have been discussed and very useful tools for people to use in different parts of the world. As I said again, you know, we are going to move into the mode of contributions, you know, small contributions by all of you. Okay, so so think about that possibility that each one of you might be able to get up here and talk for 5 or 10 minutes about something that you're doing. It does not have to be a final finished product, something that you're trying out and might have had some success or maybe some failures, because we learn more from the failures than from successes, and share with the rest of us. that's really going to be the format that we're going to be switching into in the next few weeks, so that it's not just top down, some expert from industry or some expert from university telling you that it worked over there, but we want to hear from you. What have you tried out? What have you succeeded? What have you failed in doing? And that will give a real feel for everybody in this audience, in this community, about how to move forward together. So Hans, on that note, can I ask you to just wind up, closing remarks from you?
Well, thank you very much, Krishna and Peter. Thank you for a very, very interesting. I appreciated Uriel's question, and I think you handled that very, very well. IFEES and GDC, Peter, we are a global community, and obviously you have deep experience. For example, one of the things I'm in touch with, among others, close colleagues, for example, in Africa, in different parts that face a lot of very complex technical issues. And I'd like to one other question, we don't have the time today, in terms of what your experience has been in some of the African nations, and what I'd like to, building on Krishna's comments, which we very much want to do, is not have only the doctor expert speaking, but several colleagues. And I'd like to bring in, besides our wonderful Argentinian friends, also some friends from Africa, India, and so forth. So to bring in the global community to learn from thoughtful individuals like you, but also learn from each other as they face this common crisis together. So many thanks, Peter, for your very thoughtful, highly appreciated presentation.
Well, look, thank you very much. And look, I'm always willing to help. And I believe it's all of us working together that's how we find solutions. And Myanmar has many of the problems that you would actually be facing in Africa too. Myanmar is a very poor country, and they have to find solutions as far as education is concerned. So, you know, I'm always happy to help, always happy to you know, work with whoever in trying to make things better, I suppose.
Fantastic. Thank you, Peter, for getting up so early in the morning in California and doing this for us. Now go and take some rest before you head out to.
Yes, no, I'll take probably an hour's sleep here and then get going. Okay.
Okay. And
So
thank
you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And I'll send you that link. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you listening. Cheers.